I warmly welcome you to Friedrich Nietzsche, one of the great European philosophers. Today, we will explore his famous concept of the will to power and his visionary idea of the Overman. You will see that many of Nietzsche's ideas remain powerfully relevant today. As early as 1882, he wrote a short sentence that became world famous. God is dead. This phrase is now known across the globe, not just in Europe, but also in America. Many people recognize the phrase, but few know it originated with Nietzsche. It spread like wildfire because it captured a profound cultural shift that would challenge the Western world for centuries. When Nietzsche declared God is dead, he wasn't describing a sudden event, but a gradual process. He wrote, "What I'm telling is the story of the next 2 centuries. I am describing what is to come, the rise of nihilism." He foresaw a slow erosion of the religious worldview that had underpinned Western civilization for thousands of years. The decline of faith was underway, and he believed this would culminate in widespread meaninglessness. Even today, hundreds of thousands leave the church each year. Nietzsche's prediction holds. As science advances, belief retreats. In his time, Darwin had challenged the biblical creation story, proposing instead that we evolved from earlier life forms. Scientific discoveries in medicine, physics, and other fields dismantled traditional beliefs. For instance, the plague was no longer seen as divine punishment, but as a bacterial infection. Such revelations shook the foundations of faith. Nietzsche asked, "Where has God gone?" His answer, "We have killed him, you and I. We are all his murderers." He meant that society had withdrawn the belief that gave God meaning. It wasn't just scientists who caused this shift. It was everyone who stopped believing. Nietzsche is often seen as the first postmodern thinker. The Enlightenment brought the rise of reason, science, and secular humanism, ideas that challenged religious authority. But Nietzsche believed this critique didn't go far enough. He asked, what happens after faith collapses? What replaces it? He observed that new idols quickly filled the void. Nationalism, for example. In Germany, patriotism and identity began to serve as substitutes for lost religious meaning. Nietzsche criticized this herd mentality and called the German nationalism of his time shallow and reactionary. He admired the French, who he thought were more intellectually and culturally refined. Another idol he condemned was racism, particularly anti-Semitism. Nietzsche fiercely opposed it, describing anti-Semites as resentful and small-minded. Though he once admired Richard Wagner, their friendship soured in part because of Wagner's anti-Semitism. Nietzsche rejected any ideology that rooted self-worth in degrading others. Socialism was another target of his critique. He saw it as a new form of tyranny, where the state suppresses individuality in the name of equality. He warned that socialism aims to create a world where everyone is the same, and in doing so, crushes personal excellence and creativity. Capitalism, too, came under fire. Nietzsche warned of a culture dominated by commerce, where everything is judged by supply and demand. In such a world, value is reduced to market price, and success is measured by wealth alone. This, he said, was just another form of idolatry, worship of money in place of deeper meaning. So what do we do, Nietzsche asked, now that God is dead? His answer, we must become creators of value. Shouldn't we become gods ourselves, he asked? The challenge is immense, and most people are not ready. Instead, they turn to false idols. But Nietzsche believed we must grow strong enough to shape the future ourselves. All gods are dead, he wrote. Now we want the Overman to live. Who is the Overman? Nietzsche found the first hints of this concept in Greek tragedy, where human life was seen as a struggle between 2 opposing forces, the Apollonian and the Dionysian. The Apollonian represents reason, order, and structure. The Dionysian stands for chaos, emotion, and instinct. Nietzsche argued that human beings are torn between these 2 principles. Ancient tragedy showed this conflict clearly. For instance, in Sophocles' Oedipus, the hero tries to act rationally but is ultimately undone by fate and instinct.
Nietzsche lamented that over time, Western thought increasingly suppressed the Dionysian element, favoring rationalism and control, especially through figures like Socrates, Plato, and later Christianity. Christianity, in Nietzsche's view, deepened this imbalance. It demonized the body, desire, and instinct. He accused it of glorifying weakness, elevating pity, and producing what he called yes men, people who obey rather than create. He considered Christian morality harmful, suppressing our true nature and turning instincts inward to fester as guilt and bad conscience. Nietzsche believed consciousness arose late in evolution. For billions of years, life was instinctive. When humans formed societies, they had to repress aggression, desire, and emotion. These instincts, no longer expressed outwardly, turned inward, creating the psychological burden of guilt. He wrote, "Life always lives at the expense of other life."
The will to power. All life, he argued, is an expression of the will to grow, dominate, and express itself. Plants seek sunlight. Amoebas engulf nutrients. Even in human society, ambition and desire reflect this will. Success comes at the cost of others' failure. Power dynamics are inescapable. So how should we live? Nietzsche didn't call for selfishness, but for self-overcoming. He admired those who endure hardship and grow stronger. He even said that some goals may justify great sacrifice. He cited Chancellor Helmut Schmidt, who, during a terrorist crisis, chose national justice over individual life, a tragic but principled act. Nietzsche also saw the will to power expressed in great cultures like Rome and the Renaissance. He admired their creativity, strength, and love of life. The Renaissance especially inspired him. Artists like Leonardo da Vinci, the rediscovery of science, and the celebration of beauty and sensuality. He believed this spirit should guide us today. So what is the Overman? Not the richest, not the strongest, not the most famous. The Overman is one who discovers and lives out their deepest creative potential, regardless of recognition. They are driven by an inner vision. Van Gogh is one example, misunderstood in his time, but true to his art. The Overman lives by their own values. Nietzsche wrote, "Everyone has their good day when they find their higher self." Maturity, he said, means recovering the seriousness one had as a child at play. He described 3 transformations of the spirit: the camel, the lion, and the child. First, we are camels. We take on burdens, traditions, expectations. Then we become lions. We rebel and tear them down. But this isn't enough. Finally, we must become children, creators of new values. The child represents innocence, a new beginning, and a holy yes to life. The lion can destroy, but only the child can create. After liberation comes creation. The Overman is not just a destroyer of old values, but a joyful inventor of new ones. Nietzsche challenges us not to ask what we've broken free from, but what we are free for. He ends with a thought that captures his spirit. One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star. Thank you.